today's video, well, it's a bit of a random ad hoc one, really. If you hear any noises like rattling in the background, that's my cat. She's playing with her treat toy. So she might meow at me every now and then when she can't get a treat out, so do bear with. But anyway, I digress. So it's basically like a sort of tutorial, like a helpful guide for weapons and attachments, okay? So you saw that I uploaded a video recently where I was using the UMP45, and during that video I actually picked up an AK-74U conversion, and the gun was awful. So awful, in fact, I had to use it in semi-auto. Yes, I used it in semi-auto. No, not full auto. Full auto was awful. Semi-auto, so much better. Anyway, so I thought that it would be good to sort of, I don't want to say educate, because I don't think you're all stupid or anything. I just mean like, as in, give you some useful information that might help you get better. So, we're going to have a look at my loadouts. That was copied from the other one, so I'll have to change that eventually, the name anyway. But, so, basically, so, when you have a gun, so say for instance you've got this set up, okay? So I'm going to put the Corvus Marksman on, alright? Now a lot of people will be like, AK, what are you doing? You should put that on, or that on, to help reduce, you know, to increase your ADS time. And that's where I would say no, you don't actually need to do that. This gun in this current setup does actually scope in slower than you would probably like to, especially in a super duper fast-paced close quarter situation. But because of the 50 round mags, you can sort of start shooting before you're aiming, if that makes sense. Just not like spraying and then aim, because that actually won't do anything. That you'll still be technically hip firing even if you're aiming. But like if you pull the trigger just as you start to aim, it sort of negates that anyway. But the thing that a lot of people don't seem to realise, especially with certain guns, is how certain attachments help the guns, okay? So, you have recoil control and recoil stabilisation. Now the two differences between that, recoil stabilisation stops the gun going from side to side when you're shooting and aim down the sights. You know, sometimes the gun sort of wobbles and bounces around and you can't hit your target. Recoil stabilisation will solve that issue. Whereas recoil control will stop the gun going up. So if you notice that your gun is shooting up a lot, use something that has a recoil control on it, opposed to recoil stabilization. Now the M4, I find, has got quite flat, level recoil anyway, but the extra addition of the commando foregrip actually makes it more of a laser beam, because the vertical recoil is nigh non-existent anyway. And then you've got the 50 round mags, and the reason I use the 50 round mags is technically this class originally was the class I would use if I was playing Warzone. When I was playing Warzone, I had sort of setups, my guns set up like this, or very similar to this. And the 50 round mags is basically just so that you can keep shooting at someone who has armor plates and drain them down. But where in core, obviously, or hardcore if that's your preference, you don't really need to have that much ammo. So you could have a 30 round mag if you wanted to, but I stuck with the 50 round mag because it just seems to work better, in my opinion. You have more reserve ammo, so you can kill someone and then you don't have to reload. Because I am one of those types of people that I have a love-hate relationship with my square button, or my R button, or whatever you want to use for reload. I don't know what you bind it to on PC. It is R, but you could change it technically, that's what I mean. So that sort of helps stop that. But the thing that I see a lot of people doing, and I don't really understand why. Okay, so this gun, if you look at the mobility, that is the bit that tells you how fast you ADS. It's not control, it's in the mobility section. Even though that technically for me makes no sense, because you would think a gun that ADS is faster would have better control. You can control it better. But control is like basically how much the gun jumps around and shoots, essentially. So when you look at the mobility, it looks like it's very bad. Now, if you're on PC, you have a faster frames per second than most people, depending on your rig and whatever else. So in that regard, that to you might be a really bad thing, if that makes sense, because you would be getting more frames, so when you're ADSing, you notice it's even slower. But at 60 FPS on console, that is fine. Now, it might seem really slow, but it's actually not. But the thing that people don't seem to be realizing, and I don't see this in any video at all, so I'm going to share it with you, is you get three types of pistol grip, or grip rather. You get the granulated grip, which is aim stability and aim walking steadiness. So what that means is when you're aiming your gun, the idle sway of the weapon, so just your character basically holding the gun, it moves around a lot less, and when you're walking around whilst aiming, your gun moves less as well. The rubberized grip tape is pretty self-explanatory. It helps reduce recoil control. So if you were to combine a rubberized grip tape with something like a Merc foregrip, for instance, on a gun that likes to climb vertically when you shoot it a lot, then that would generally help more than if you were struggling to aim. That would help a lot more. And the thing with the rubberized grip tape is that if you notice, okay, so that reduces my mobility a little bit, the granulated grip tape, whereas the rubberized grip tape does nothing. On most guns, rubberized grip tape only improves accuracy, reduces your control, and changes nothing else. In terms of pros and cons, I mean, if we compare the granulated grip tape, for instance, it has one pro, okay? It increases your control, but reduces your mobility and your accuracy. Stipple grip tape, again, normally affects the control and the accuracy and increases mobility. But the thing that you've got to notice here is on the pros, it says aim down sight speed, good. Sprint to fire speed, better. Sprint to fire speed is better than ADS speed, because if you can raise your gun to shoot an enemy before they can raise their gun to shoot yours, you will win the gunfight. Now granted, if that person running around on the game is using this sort of a setup on their gun, then unfortunately they will definitely be able to out ADS and outshoot you. But after a certain point of increased ADS speed, you don't actually see any noticeable benefits, because the animation can only play for as long as the animation can play. So a really fast animation is really fast, but it doesn't really change overall. So we'll just put all that back together, the way it was before. Where are we? I thought the stock was a suppressor then. Now what I found by using a weapon in this configuration is that it seems, to me at least, and I notice the small things. I'm a person who notices the small changes that each gun and each different attachment adds, or removes rather, from a gun, and how it feels to play. So when I'm playing around with the different attachments to try and find something that works for me, ultimate works for me, it might not necessarily work for you. You might want a gun that ADS is like a lightning bolt. But for me, this works. You have the best range, you're off the map, the suppressor increases your range again by a little bit, you have lots of ammunition and you can shoot faster, and the gun doesn't bounce around as much. And that to me is the perfect balance for an AR. So we'll just have a look, and I've basically done the same similar thing for my MP5. Now, for a long time I was torn between these two. Okay, the subsonic integral suppressor increases your mobility. It also has no visible traces, and when you kill an enemy, their skull isn't visible on the map, which is fantastic. However, it completely destroys the range of your SMG. Now, I know the MP5 is generally a close range weapon, but 9 times out of 10 your engagements are going to be 30 meters. Around 30 meters is the maximum really you should be sort of aiming to sort of get into a fight with someone anyway. But 30 meters is about sort of where I seem to be getting into fights anyway. Whereas the monolithic suppressor, even though it has a hindrance to your mobility, and obviously enemy skulls still show on the map and you have visible traces, it increases the range significantly and the accuracy as well, which is the same realistically as the monolithic. Not the monolithic, the subsonic, sorry. But as you can see, I've done a very similar thing here. I've got the recoil control on here, which doesn't remove anything, and because it's an SMG, you scope it in extremely fast anyway, so there's no real downsides. You could put that on if you really wanted to. If you were struggling to hit your targets, that's fine. But you don't really need to, which is the joyous thing about this. And obviously I've got the increased 45 round mags. The 10mm auto, although it does increase damage a little bit, it isn't really that useful. I find I tend to drop, when I compared these two a lot, to be fair, and I found that with the 45 round mags I used less ammo and dropped more people than with the 10mm autos. And also with the 45 round mags you don't have to reload as much, which is the other benefit to using that sort of setup. If you're a person again that has a love-hate relationship with their reload button, you could put sleight of hand so you reload a bit faster, because I will say that the 45 round mags do reload a little bit slower. I have the Merc foregrip to increase my hip fire accuracy, because again it's an SMG. And for a very long time I was running this on it, so the classic straight line stock for aiming stability. But what I found was that you don't really need it. It's not really that useful. I mean, yes, I know a lot of people use the FTAC collapsible, but the decrease in the control, the range, and the accuracy for me is too much. So I just leave the default stock on like I do with the M4. And again, with the UMP45, we have pretty much the same setup as before. Now, unfortunately, the barrel choices for the UMP are pretty not good. Pretty not good. That is good for increasing range, so use that if your targets are further away. Like if you're in Atlas Superstore, for instance, and you want to get people that are a bit further away, use that to sort of close the gap a bit. Completely avoid the 400mm stainless. As far as I'm aware, it's bugged and doesn't do anything other than reduce your ADS speed. And short barrels are kind of pointless, I find, most of the time, unless it's on certain ARs, because it's an SMG, so it already has a fast ADS speed anyway. The Merc foregrip for hipfire accuracy, that also does away for the need of a laser. If anyone's using a thermal sight, for instance, they'll be able to see your laser when you aim at them. Obviously, if you use the 1mm laser, then, or milliwatt, sorry, you don't have to worry too much about your laser being seen by the people instead of the green lasers. But I don't use the green lasers as much as possible anyway, unless it's on the sniper class, because obviously it's a sniper. And again, I have the recoil control. I did play around using this for a while, and as much as it is useful, and it does really increase the mobility back to almost its base level, again, as I said, when you're aiming, you don't really notice. It isn't noticeable. It really isn't. It aims very fast because it's an SMG. Now here we have possibly my favourite gun in this entire game that isn't a sniper rifle, and that is the Ram 7 or the MTAR, or the TAR 21, or whatever you want to call it. That's basically what it is. And again, I go with the same philosophy. I have a monolithic suppressor. That increases the range just a little bit, just enough to sort of keep those engagements a bit further away sometimes, to keep them a bit sort of at arm's length, but at the same time, you still have enough power and, you know, bullet speed or fire rate to actually kill them. The underbarrel foregrip, now, the commando foregrip, sorry. Now, the Ram 7 has a very strange recoil pattern. It sort of goes up for a couple of shots, about halfway through the mag, and then it veers off to the left. Okay, that's the sort of recoil pattern it has. And when you use the commando foregrip, that recoil pattern is basically destroyed, and it's all vertical, and it is just so little vertical recoil, it's unreal. And this one, I do have the sprint to fire speed, because I like to be on target quickly with this gun. This is how you've got to use the gun. It has to be quick. And FMJ, now, I played around with having sleight of hand and fully loaded and all the other different ones that I could think of. That would improve it. I even tried the 3-round burst. Don't use the 3-round burst. It doesn't work. But the FMJ is fantastic, because if you're... So you're running around a map, you're on vacant, for instance, and someone's hiding in the toilet area that's in between the map, you know, where there's a little campy spot people can sort of mount onto. Well, in that area, for instance, if someone's behind the wall and you're in the toilet and they're in the hallway, or vice versa, and you know where they are on the minimap, you can shoot through the wall and kill them. So it genuinely shocks people that they see the kill cam and they think you're a hacker. I mean, there are hackers, but you're not a hacker, you're just using FMJ. And again, we have the same sort of situation here, only, again, what I was originally trying to say was that the larger the barrel, the better for increasing damage range, but with the MTAR, it's more of a close quarters gun I use it for. And then we have the Ground 5.56, and this is just sublime. It is just amazingly sublime. I have the XRK Void to increase ADS speed. I have got the stock, the standard stock, the Archangel barrel, monolithic suppressor, and commando foregrip. This gun is a laser beam, and with the 50-round mags, if someone's head glitching, you don't have to worry about whether or not you kill them quickly or not. You can just empty the entire mag into them. It's just brilliant. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about, really. Those are my sort of classes that I use, and I use them for very specific things. So, like for instance, UMP45, if it's a medium range map, I'll use that. If it's super close quarters and everyone's getting sweaty, I'll pull out the submachine gun, the MP5. And if everyone is literally just playing like pure cancer, then I will pull out an M4. But I normally pull out the MTAR before the M4. But yeah, that'll do it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. If you're new, like that content, hit that subscribe button. And remember to click your bell so you never miss any daily uploads from me. Or daily. Any uploads. Not daily, but any uploads. I am also going to be trying to upload more regularly, hence the fact I said daily and kind of screwed that up. And this is all ad hoc, so I'm not going to edit it, so it's just going to be uploaded as is. So I hope you like it, and my weird ramblings. As always, there'll be videos popping up on the screen soon, and a little button in the middle with my smile little cat face on it. Also want to point out, I'm not a furry, okay? The only reason I say that is because people seem to think I am because I have a cat avatar. It's just a cute little cat avatar. That's the only reason I have it. I don't have it because I identify as a cat, or any of that malarkey. If that's what you want to do, you want to identify yourself as a cat, that's fine. It's your life. Your life choices have no impact on my life whatsoever, so go for it, if that's what you want to do. I have no hatred.